Hello, and welcome back to our next day of learning of the Chafetz Chaim, a daily companion. We are now on day 11, which is called Arrogance and Disgrace. Now remember, we're at the segment in the book when the Chafetz Chaim starts to go through all the negative commandments that are violated with each word of Lashon Hara that we speak. Remember, there are 17 violations every time we speak Lashon Hara. So today he speaks about the violation of being arrogant. He says that when you speak Lashon Hara, you are showing a tremendous amount of arrogance. Why? Because if you realize your own failings and your flaws, you wouldn't have this need to speak about other people, because you would know yourself that you're not this tremendous in every area either. He said we violate the commandment that says, be careful lest you forget Hashem your God, which prohibits us from acting arrogantly. And arrogance has particularly severe consequences because it is singled out as a trait which Hashem especially dislikes. The Chafetz Chaim adds that if the speaker of Lashon Hara raises his own stature in people's eyes by degrading his victim, his offense is even more severe. He then goes on to talk about another mitzvah that we violate, or another avera that we cause when we speak Lashon Hara, which is that you shall not make a chilul Hashem. You should not desecrate God's name. So how is speaking Lashon Hara a desecration of God? Well, my own answer that I thought at first was, well, when you talk about other Jews, and those are Hashem's children, other people, and those are Hashem's children, you're degrading him, right? If someone would sit and insult your children, that would be embarrassing and shameful for you. But the Chafetz Chaim explains it that when you take a Torah commandment and you blatantly don't listen to it, it's a violation of Hashem's name. You're basically saying, God gave this mitzvah that we shouldn't speak Lashon Hara, but I think I know better. And speaking and sitting around with my friends right now is a lot more important to me than keeping this commandment. And that is desecrating God's name, because he specifically is telling us in the Torah that this is something that he abhors, that he hates, that Lashon Hara is destructive. And every time that we don't keep that commandment, we're basically creating a chilul Hashem, saying, I know more than you do, and I don't agree that this is as destructive as you say. Just wanted to end off with a quick story that really shows how destructive Lashon Hara was. It always hit home to me a lot when I heard this story. Story goes like this. There are two seminary girls in Israel riding on a bus, and they're talking about their friend Bracha. They said, did you hear? Bracha got engaged to Shlomo Morgenstern. I don't know how she got into such a good family like that. She is such a slob. She's not even so smart. I know people think she's smart, but she actually does really poorly on a lot of her exams. A lot of it is just because her family has a good name, so people think she has a good name. They would see our dorm, and they would see the way Bracha lives and that she is such a slob. Nobody would ever want to do a shidduch with her. And they're going on and on saying the most horrible things about Bracha. A lady sitting in front of them turns around and she says, I want to thank you so much. I'm Shlomo Morgenstern's aunt, and I'm so happy that I just heard all these things about Bracha. I'm going to tell his family immediately, because they should know what they're getting themselves into. And the two girls are sitting there for the rest of the bus ride, and they are sweating and shaking. They were saying bad things about Bracha, but they never meant for it to get back to the person she's marrying. They were just talking amongst themselves and having fun and schmoozing. And now they could have created real disaster in Bracha's life. That's never what they meant. She's not a bad person. And the ladies stop. This aunt, it comes to her stop, and she stands up. And the girls want to say, I didn't mean anything I said. And the aunt, before they could speak, turns around to them and says, listen, I'm not Shlomo Morgenstern's aunt, but I could have been. This story demonstrates the power of how destructive Lashon Hara is. And when Hashem commanded us to not speak it, he knew in his infinite wisdom that it is terrible. Now we will get into later in the book times when it might be necessary, it might be toeles. But other times when it's not toeles, which is majority of the time, it is prohibited to be spoken. And even when it is toeles and there is a reason for it, there's laws. You can't just speak openly whatever you want to say. It has to be done in a certain manner. So I hope we have a great day and that we continue to work on our speech and speaking properly about one another.